Hello there, and welcome to my little arty corner. It's Sunday afternoon, Sunday the 25th of June, and it's cloudy here. It's still pretty warm. There's a bit of a breeze. Clouds are quite dark, so I'm hoping for some rain to freshen the air and the land up and to cool things down a bit. I'm not sure whether we forecast it or not, because I'm not going out today, and I will explain more about that in a wee while. But I thought you might like a look through this yellow book of mine that I've mentioned before. This is where I'm transferring all of my favourite patterns and motifs and other kinds of stuff into as my reference for things. And these are the sections I've started on, except for just plain tangle patterns. So ribbons and borders, botanica and organica, botanics and organics. That could include anything that you could count as organic. It could be patterns, organic patterns, as well as botanical things. I'll have a fauna somewhere as well. And botanica really, it is botanicals, but it can be very stylised ones. Remember, I like stylised. Filler patterns and textures. The Zentangle patterns there are the official Zentangle patterns, but I haven't put them all there because there are some I just don't like and would never use. But I've put the ones there I do like, may possibly use, or definitely do use. But they're there just so I can refresh my memory or get some inspiration. Tangle patterns I haven't started on yet, and fragments with an exclamation mark. And the reason for the exclamation mark is this. I will show you briefly. We'll have a look at some more. This is the first 2 pages of fragments. And this has got a dotted squared grid. So the squares aren't solid, not solid lines forming them. It's little dotted lines, so it makes them much fainter than solid squares would. So I started with the very first fragment in the Zentangle primer, the simplest one perhaps, just 2 ribbons crossed over. I think it's A1. And then I started doing variations. And I got here and I realised I was squashing in an awful lot of details in a very small space. And I thought, if I draw bigger, there's more space for details and fiddly bits. So I redrew all of these, as well as creating a few more along the way, using a coloured fineliner pen, a Staedtler one. I think it's Kalahari Orange, which is a lovely burnt orange colour. It's the kind of orange I like. And yes, well, we went from that to an even simpler version of the fragment, which is where the 2 lines have got so close together they've become one, or we're looking at them on the edge. Because I experimented with different thicknesses of these lines in places, and then I started turning them diagonally and working on things there. And no doubt I've sort of come across other fragments or other patterns people like. This one I particularly like here. But let's have a look at the rest very quickly so you can see. So my ribbons and borders page, yes, there's some colour here, because, you know, every now and again I might feel like colouring. Just something simple because I'm too tired to do anything else, so I can add some colour and shading. And I think particularly because these are done with various coloured pencils, just to see how they work on this paper. So there's more here with some coloured pen as well. And more. Rebecca Blair inspired patterns. Kept here as a record, but I do change them to suit me as well. Although sometimes I do steal them, as it were. I'm sure they're not entirely unique. Then here's the first couple of pages of Botanica and Organica again. I've added some colour to show how to bring out volume and dimension. Just move it over a bit. You can see all of them. They are pokey root and pokey leaf. And some things may appear in a couple of sections or more, because, I use them in different ways or with different themes. So I might have some sea themed or water themed collections, and some of these work wonderfully as seaweeds or corals and weird plants that might grow under the water, sea anemones and the like. And there's some more here with leaves and so on, and examples of hatching and cross hatching, contour lines to bring out the shape, because I do like drawing with just black pen. And then I get on to more fragments and ribbons. There's no title here though, because I've mentioned this before, but if you haven't seen it, this is something I picked up from my dabbling with bullet journaling a number of years ago, that you only need to put a heading for a collection of pages, so pages that are on the same theme once. But then if you've numbered the pages, you can put an arrow pointing backwards to show where the last page of the collection was, and then an arrow pointing forwards. Where am I going? Like here, move it over, which tells me which page to go to for the continuation. It's so simple. I don't know how I didn't work that one out myself, but I got quite a few here now. And no doubt I'll be looking at these and looking for variations on those as well. Along the way, I've tried to add patterns and textures in different ways, not just for these, but inspiration for others as well, because it's about combining different things. I will show you. This was an accidental two-page turnover. I didn't mean to leave 2 blank pages, but it just means that I can just carry on with this section until I complete it. Filler textures and patterns, I absolutely love them. I really do. And there's so many of them that are just fun to work with. And I need to look back at all the Romanesque architecture I've drawn and studied at some point. And there's some more there. And you can see I've left a page here because I quite like starting a new section with a double page spread. And Rebecca Blair inspired a lot of them, or some of them. So when I finish this and I start the next continuation, I'll put an arrow going forward and at the beginning one going back. Well, I've got one going back. And these are the official Zentangle patterns, the ones I like. You can't see, but the official ones, the ones I like, because I am a bit fussy. Well, we all are, aren't we? We all have our favourites and we all have the ones we think, oh, not really. I really struggle drawing brays. I'm going to have to look at that one. I think it could be useful, but I think I've got the chevrons pointing in the wrong direction on this one, or perhaps the other one, but it doesn't feel right at the moment. So if you're a Zentangler, these will be familiar to you, and you can see that in some of them I'll put variations in because the familiar is so well known to me. I'll just put little reminders in there. I even did a tiny Puyang and Mycelium, which is fun. I do like Mirth actually. So, and some of them haven't got all the variations, and these are the fragments which I was talking about. So I started with the simplest, and I thought what I'd do today is to explore a fragment perhaps. Let's have a look. And see what I can do with a particular fragment. Not here, but on paper, because that would annoy me working on there. Now, do I want to use one of these? I possibly do. Now then, do I have a clip to put on this? I should have. Oh yeah, I can see it. Hang on. Bang, crash wallet. Just reached it, and that'll keep it flat. So let me go through some of these, okay? And so this paper is 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches, which is ruler here, which is about 12.5 centimetres by 12.5 centimetres. I like a nice square shape, and I prefer something that's a bit bigger than smaller. Talking of small things, one needs one's glasses, otherwise one can't see clearly. And what I'm going to do is I am going to just draw a grid in, I think. And I'll see if we can fill a grid up with fairly sizable shapes. Not shapes, squares. I think if I split these into 3, can I do 36? Don't know. Perhaps not as big as I'd like, but or as big, yeah, perhaps I should have done 4 or 5. Could have done 5s. So this way. You may get some that aren't quite square, but that's fine. Hand-drawn grids. If I wanted it perfect, I would have used a ruler, but I don't. Now then, I've got some fountain pens filled with permanent ink out. My favourite ones, but I had a delivery of these today, and they're Rotring Rollerball pens. Now Rotring are well known by me for technical drawing pens, the ones that have got the steel nibs. I had one when I was 13 some years ago, and I've still got a set here somewhere, but they're such a pain because if they start leaking you have to take them apart, wash them, clean them and hope that they carry on. And if they get blocked you have to do the same. They can be a bit of a pain. Even the more modern isograph? Rapidograph, which have cartridges, you're supposed to be able to just put one cartridge, change the cartridge and one's empty, but they never seem to work properly, so I tend not to use them. But these do have waterproof ink in them. I've tested it. I will double test today though. This is a different paper to what I tested it on. If I put a lot of ink down, then it's going to spread a little bit because it will take a little bit longer to dry. And they're in 0.5 and 0.7, so they're nice thicknesses for drawing. So I just thought that these would be so much fun. Now, I am going to draw a little bit inside of these squares with my lines for each fragment, because then that gives me a gap between them, so they won't butt up against each other, as it were. So I'm going to put the simplest one of these fragments in. This isn't a fragment in the book, but it's a basic pattern. In fact, I just did the simplest there with just a single line. I actually started working on those somewhere as well. But we'll do this. So the first variation, shall I zoom in? Dare I zoom in? I run the risk of not having everything being seen. So here I'm going to do the fragment that's in the Zentangle primer, because it's just the next progression from this. I could have just made the lines very thick and black, but that's not interesting. And this next one is also a variation in the Zentangle primer, which is where you draw this again. And then I'm going to aura these lines in the order I drew them. And I'm not going to draw them on top of this one. They're going to go, underneath, as they say in Zentangle, in a hollyball fashion. And now that looks like something you'd find on a ceiling. So my next variation, I'm going to draw this again. And yeah, I'm drawing the squares each time because it's a tedious process to fill all of these in before you start drawing. And so I'm going to do this one again. So the same thing. These are nice to draw with actually. I'll often use Uniball eyes because they have waterproof ink in them as well. And these draw so much smoother than those, so I'm so glad. And I couldn't buy them singly at a sensible price. I kid you not, they wanted £18, somebody did, for 3 of them. I got a box of 12 for about £10. So, on Amazon. So I'm very happy. Let them not go out of stock, is all I'm going to say. I hadn't come across them before. I was just having a look while I was settling down. Okay, oh, that's the same one. So I did want to do something here, and I'm going to use the finer pen and just draw an aura the outside part, and just let it form that frame there, which is quite interesting. And I'll do a separate variation. I'll do a variation on that here. I often find that one leads to another, which then leads to another, and so on. Is as you create simple variations, you then realise, oh, I could do that there. So this is going to be an example of that, because I'm thinking, what can I stick in those corners there? What can I do with them? Lots of wondrous things. I'm going to apologise if I can't filter all of the sound of my fan out, and if you hear voices outside and traffic noises. It is Sunday afternoon, but there still seems to be a fair number of vehicles on the road. So I am going to round the inside and outside corners, and I get this interesting shape then that has got rounded edges, but then it looks quite leaf shaped. But this little, oh, I did put that in the wrong place. It'll be fine. It's an accident. But of course, the other way of doing this, which I'll do, is to do along the edges just here and have something that really does end up looking very much leaf-like. There's something lovely about this shape. You know, a rectangle or a square that's got two, oh, no, I did it right. 2 square corners and 2 not. In fact, it could almost be a flower as well. So I'm just going to put a couple of lines in. So it could be either. I mean, these could be as well. So let's pop lines. Ooh, didn't press hard enough, like this. And then we're getting a different kind of pattern going on behind that. But I could just, I want them to go round, yeah, round, don't I? So they'll be pointing this way and then this way. So we've got the circular motion there, and we're telling people these are leaves. So I could just put a couple more lines in just to emphasize that fact, like so. Or not. Choice is yours. So leave it without, leave it with. I guess it depends on the size of square you've got, the size of grid you're using. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, this one, I'm going to draw an aura inside this box, and then I'm going to draw these lines, but I'm going to curve the ends out a little bit. So they just spread out that little bit, and we get these, again, we've got these interesting shapes here. We've got curved sides and pointy ends. So it's a variation of this in many ways, but these have got a different way of coming to a stop, I suppose, different way of looking. So that's interesting, and I'll leave that as it is because there's something about those shapes I really love. It's like spirals. I don't know why, I just do. So let's put some in like this. Now if you were doing this in a grid, the sections next door have got choices about what you do. You can either use them going all the same way all across, so you'll end up with strips of these, you know, these lines will always be behind, or you can rotate them. So the next one, this will be the first one you draw going across, and then the second one you draw will be the vertical one which goes underneath, and so on and so on. And that will create an interesting pattern, trust me on that. I'm going to do another one of those, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually draw a grid here, because that will help me create what I want to do, and you'll see what I mean. Because what I want to do here is I want to draw from here very close to the centre and then out, and the same on the other side. So the grid just helps me make sure I get it as, well, I suppose, symmetrical as I can. If I don't get it perfect, I'm not bothered. But that would make an interesting pattern as well. And I know from experimenting that if you rotate these, so vertical is on top, horizontal is underneath, vertical on top, horizontal underneath, you'll get a very interesting way that these seem to weave together. So I might do this one. And of course, these lovely shapes on the end here are just ripe for filling with things. So I'm just going to fill them here with a smaller version of themselves, because I can. But I'm sure there are all kinds of things we can do. And also, just pop in my pencil case, hopefully. Have I got one in here? Not that pencil case. You have no idea how many pencil cases I've got and trays with pens in and goodness knows what. It is ridiculous. Right, I'm looking for that green, fancy mossy green. And of course, if we add some colour to these sections, like so, and I'm just going to add some vertical lines rather than try to colour them in, then that helps to bring out different areas or different shapes. Again, we can do that with others. So with this one here, I could do a pattern that sort of like goes vertically, but I think I might use the point there and just have lines radiating out like so. And because the lines all come together at the centre, we get that a concentration of this ink, which then suggests that we're actually going deeper down, that there's this here is going away to a point in infinity where the lines join. And of course I can use colour on any of these, you can. And I think it's fun to experiment with colour as well. Okay, next one. I might actually do that in a tile. So perhaps I'll fill this line and I'll choose one of these to do on a tile that I may or may not finish drawing. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go back to drawing this kind of one, where I'm not curving them quite all the way back to the middle. I'm going to use my green pen again. Now these green pens aren't waterproof. Excuse me. Excuse me. Now the pollen's supposed to be high, but it could just be dust in the air. So I've got this here. But what I want to do in the corners here, I'm going to start with a small orb at the base of them. Now that looks nice as it is. I like that, and it would be nice perhaps to put a line in, like so. Perhaps I'll do that on the bottom as a reminder to me, because this is going to end up being stuck in my notebook or in the sketchbook, perhaps in a sketchbook. But then I'm going to fill these other two sections up with squished in orbs in a perk style, isn't it? It's the Zentangle Pattern perk. And you can see the difference that extra ink there makes to that section. And that's enough of a clue for me to know what I want to do. So when I come and do this perhaps as that repeating pattern, perhaps I'll use the perks to fill these spaces in. That would be quite fun. Okay, two more. Oh, I'm using just the 05 pen, it looks like. So the 05 is noticeably finer than the 07. So we've gone for fairly standard thickness lines. So how about if we go for really thick and sturdy lines? And again, I'm just going to pop, in this case, black auras inside these lines. And this, if you rotate it, is going to, you rotate it so vertical on top, horizontal on top, vertical on top, horizontal on top. You'll end up with a pattern that will look a bit like W2. Okay, and I'm just going to add some pattern inside these because they're big enough to add another tangle pattern. In this case, Shattuck. Oh, Betweed could be quite nice. And I'm not breaking my lines up as I normally would with sparkle, I'm just doing this. Then I'm going to fill that with vertical. It's almost like we've got the back of a ribbon. you know, as if the ribbon's twisted over or been folded over in some way, which is quite fun. So let's go back to this. And this pen is feathered in up here a little bit and here, but I think it might be because it's so new, and perhaps because I'm taking my time and resting the pen on the surface. So one more. I've bent these inwards, they become narrower in the middle. So what about if we bend them outwards? Like so. So we've got completely different shaped spaces on the outside now. And these are really fun because they're almost kite shaped in a way. Or shaped almost like one of the paper gliders that my brothers used to make. It used to have a tail coming out the end. So there. And of course these can be coloured in black, but I think what I'd like to do is to thicken the top and the right, because this will give these some kind of dimension. I'm going to put a circle in the middle, and again top and right, so it looks like there's a hole going right the way through it. And because I haven't got a super fine pen to hand, I'm just going to use the green just to add some shadow in there. I'm flicking the pen so that the pen strokes hopefully are close together where it's darkest and fading out towards the bottom, as if we've got some intense shadows going on here. And so we've got something that's very dimensional. And to help that, I'm just going to thicken up the bottom here of this one and the left side of this one. And so we've got something that's quite dimensional. Okay, so I'm going to use this one as my what I'm going to do on another tile. So let me just pop my pens to one side. I've got so many more. Once you start, my advice is that it's always fun to explore. I have got a few here that I don't like. This one I'm not at all. Let me move it on. Let me zoom out because we're zoomed right in. This one here I really don't like. I think I could improve it, but you can see I've started moving the centre of these lines rather from the centre of the box to one space on the box. I do like that one though. I like the edge on this one because it does lift everything up. What other ones? I've made that one looks really messy, but I think it would work if I spent some time with it. I don't like this one. I thought I was going to draw some sort of like heart shapes or leaf shapes, and then it just hasn't worked. But it's something to start from and go, well, that hasn't worked, so what can I do next? This one's just a bit too fussy. This is a variation, and I prefer that. And I quite like that. I like those little arches there. And if that's twisted round, next door you'll get the little arches and those at the top, so that'll be fun to do. Yeah, so it's all about experimenting and seeing what happens. You know, I like the idea of using stippling here and the lines. This is similar to what I've just done, but I need it on a much bigger space again for that to show out really well. So I can pop my book to one side. I can get my pencil out again, because in usual form, just going to draw in a border. It might not be exact, it doesn't matter, but I just want to use this. And for this panel, I don't want this to be a perfect ledge. I want it to have an organic feel to it. And I'm going to start by working on here. I'm going to take my other pen. This is the medium point TWISBI Eco. And I'm going to draw some kind of frothy, frilly. Oh, look at that. I've been talking too long. It's dried up on me. Get it going. You were working this morning. What's the matter with you? There we go. Just needs a little bit of help. So I'm going to draw this in. I'm going to have it all windy along here. I've got a bit of kitchen towel here. Let me just give the nib a wipe. I think it's got some paper stuck in it. So these do pick up the fibres from the paper. And I'm going to create leaves along here, which I think this is similar to flux, or is flux from Zentangle. And I'm going to do that on the other side. And I'll see then what else I do, but I don't want to fill the whole tile up with this pattern. Not this, one of my explorations. So this one I'm going to finish there quite neatly, and then I'm going to go from the other end. I've discovered that drawing these shapes in from the bottom of the line makes it, you know, from where the leaves are growing out from, makes it far easier to draw this. I've been struggling doing it the other way for so long. I'm thinking, oh, how daft of me. Oh, why haven't I worked that out before? And I might just put one in here because that is an odd shape there. This one is as well, so there's nothing says we can't fill these in. And it also gives us a very interesting shape for this variation on a fragment to actually work on. So I'm going to put another one there. Just have a look at that. The bottoms here, I think I just want to bring these down so they actually form a flat connection, as if it's growing out of there and up this way. I think this could do with one going up there. Just going to fill this in. And I'm going to look where there's other gaps that I might need to fill in as well. So that one would need to be filled in. We go from very full here to not so full, so I'm just going to thicken this up by adding some leaves. Try and fill all of these in with black, Angela. Come on, you can do it, girl. So while I'm finishing this off, the reason I am not going out today is that on Friday my older sister and I went to a lovely place not too far from here called St Fagan's Museum of Welsh Life, a Welsh Folk Museum, as is lovingly known still by those of us who've known it for many years. And it has loads of buildings that have been transported brick by brick, stone by stone, and rebuilt there. Others have been, there are some that have been recreated from the archaeological remains, like some Iron Age roundhouses. There's lovely tree-lined walks, hollow ways, and a wealth of history and people to talk to about it as well, if you wish. So, neither of us are getting younger, shall we say. I've been very sedentary since November really, when I hurt my back, and with my problems with emotional and mental health, I've had problems getting out of the house, so I haven't been out walking like I used to. So, and she hasn't. So we spent about 4 or 5 hours there walking round, stopping in places, chatting to people for a little bit and carrying on. Well, I knew by the end of it I'd overdone it, because one of my ankles was very stiff and sore. It's one I've fallen over on repeatedly in my massive clumsy period around Christmas and New Year and beyond. So I damaged it a couple of times. My hips and my knees were hurting, and really, you know, it was just, I just thought, oh God. when we stopped for a very late lunch, which is basically an early tea. Actually, it was about tea time. We both went, will we get up from these chairs now? We did. We managed to make our way into the gift shop there. We'd already been in the Gwalia stores and bought some things there. We both bought the same cookbook, vegetarian vegan cookbook, full of lovely modern recipes and interesting ones. And I'd picked up some cheese there because I forgot to order cheese on my weekly shopping. So I picked up Snowdonia cheese, which I hope they're going to change the name to Erery, House Erery, because that's lovely. And one was, it's cheddar, but it's been smoked with beechwood. Oh, I had some yesterday. Oh my goodness, it's Moorish. The other one has got balsamic vinegar and onion in it, which sounds absolutely delicious. So yesterday when I woke up, I tried to walk and it was painful. I've really worked my muscles hard. Today I'm not so bad, but there's still some stiffness and ache there. Tomorrow, no doubt, I'll be feeling a bit better. So as long as it's not too sunny, because I caught the sun on Friday. Oh yeah, I did. It was cloudy and I got sunburnt. My face is not good. Not blotchy and peeling, but it's not good for me because it means I'll have a breakout of rosacea now. All spots and things are beginning to appear. And but what a wonderful day, I can tell you. Oh, I got a Welsh wool blanket as well. And it was just so lovely to spend time with my older sister. We haven't done anything like this for years and years and years. You know, she visits quite regularly, my niece. It's a complicated family. I won't go into it. But because she's so busy with my niece and her family and everything else, we don't often have time to spend. But we're making a point now, every time she's down, we'll spend time. And I've got to go and visit her now that things are, now that I'm feeling a bit better and so on. And it's a good push for me to, settle down and get the book done. So it was absolutely fantastic. I loved the St. Tylo's medieval church, as I saw it when it was just being finished several years back. And they were doing the wall paintings inside, and they looked so new and so modern, it didn't feel right. I know they would have looked like them when they were originally done in the church, but there was something about it. But going back, quite a few years later, and seeing how they've aged and weathered and become more muted and imperfect was absolutely wonderful to see, and how glorious churches would have been back in the day. Okay, I will stop wittering on, but I will try and remember to put a link in the description to where you can have a look at what St. Fagans is and so on, because we're really blessed in Wales with so many things like this. There's even a woolen mill. There's a mill there in St. Fagans, and it's not working at the moment, but they do mill flour there when it is, and they make enough so they sell some, which will be fantastic because I'll be there for some of that. There's a woolen museum out near Newcastle Emlyn in southwest Wales, which I haven't been to and I'd love to go to, but there's woolen mills elsewhere because Welsh blankets, woolen blankets, woven blankets are a very characteristic thing of Wales, I do have to say. So I am going to draw a grid here. Actually, I could do it with pen, couldn't I? No, I'm going to do it with pencil because I think I might want to rub the lines out. Yep, sorry, don't send the Zentangle police round on me. I may want to rub these lines out so we can see fully what the repetition of this pattern will be. I'm looking at this, 40 minutes. So I must probably spend about 10 minutes blathering on about my little yellow book and about 20 minutes or so to get this done. So you can do a lot in a short space of time, and it really does get your creativity going. And I don't know why I don't do it more often. And I know if I revisit, that was a bit wrong, wasn't it? There we go, that'll be fine. I've got a strange part at the top, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So, again, medium pen. And it's this fragment I'm going to do. So I have to be careful how I do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by drawing this first one in here. Like that. Now the vertical one here is going over. So on this side, I want the horizontal one to be the first one to be drawn, shall we say? And then the vertical one going over. Tell you what I will do though is I am going to put, oh, there's a corvid out there cawing. I love it this time of year because the birds are really raucous again. The bird song while we were walking around St. Fagans was absolutely blimmin' glorious. I just stopped and listened in amazement from time to time. So this would go there. So in this one, it's this that's going to be at the top, and this one's going to go underneath. So in this way, I'm joining the adjacent shapes together, but without relying on any kind of formal grid or thickness for them. I'm just doing it because I can in this way. So here I'm going to do the verticals on top. So here the horizontal needs to go on top. It's reversed. And then I'm just going to draw this in. Here, this one is going to be on top. And then this one will go beneath. Look at those pretty star shapes appearing. So here, this one goes over. And this one goes under. Now I have no idea whether this exists as a tangle pattern or not. If somebody else has covered this somewhere or, you know, registered it, sorry, but it's fine. Okay, so here, starting from here, you can see it went under here. So this one needs to go on top. And I find that by doing this row by row, I'm able to get nice joins between the different motifs rather than trying to hope that everything will sort itself out. So this one is the one that needs to go on top, and this one needs to go underneath. I never would have thought I'd get those pretty star shapes there, you know, flower shapes. Never would I. Because I didn't really contemplate it. It's not until you try to put these into a grid that you realise what is possible. And of course that means I've got all kinds of possibilities as to how to fill these spaces and how to bring them out. So this one goes under, so I'm going to start with this one to start this row off. I think that's a good idea actually, is if you can find the one that goes on top in a row and start from there, everything else sort of comes together in a weird way, possibly. So this one is going to carry on over here, and on this side it will. And then these will go under and under. It also means that you don't have to be perfect when you do it this way. This is going to be fun for shading, for those of you who love to shade. So here we've got one that goes under, this one goes under, so let's pop those in first as being the ones that go on top. And then I'm just going to turn it this way because it's perfectly radially, it's symmetrical in all directions, as it were. Then I'm going to, this one will go over here, so we'll draw that one in. And this one. I sometimes do this. It's after working one cell at a time. I'll suddenly see, okay, that's how that works. So this is a quicker way of doing it. There we go. So this one's going under. So here it's going to need to be the first one to be drawn. Like so. And then they're very noisy, the corvids. And then this one it's gone under here, so on the other side it's going to be on top, and on this side it's going to be on top as well, because they alternate. And then I can just come and put these in, like so. And these ones, remembering to bend them inwards, and I think here I'm going to have to splay it out a little bit more at the top. Splay it out, make it wider there. So these ones have gone under, this one and this one, so they need to be drawn on top. I'm so tempted actually to stretch this out at the top and see what happens. No, we won't. We'll behave, because you may end up with a section that's got a bit left like this, and you might not know what to do with it. So let us work on with that, is it? It's about half a square in size, isn't it? So here I'm going to look at this and I'm going to judge roughly where these would be. Well, look, I've got that line, haven't I, to judge it by. So then, oh yeah, so these have all got to connect now in the middle, because this one will be on top and this one will be underneath. Okay, so this one went underneath, so it's going to go to the top. So we've got half of that there. So we'll have half of this here, a whole one there and there. Then this one will go underneath like that. And we can't really see the one that goes underneath there, but I will adjust the shape of that. And that finishes that end off. So that is my basic grid. I like that. Now that would work just as it is. I'm going to give it a little wee moment just to dry before I erase the pencil lines, because I'd like to get rid of them before I decide how I'm going to do something with these. Now I could bring out those petal shapes, which is certainly a way. These almost look like bamboo canes, don't they? You know how bamboo has that knotted bit, and I'm tempted to actually turn them into bamboo. I think I will. Yeah, I think we can do that, you know. So this should have dried, because this ink dries really quickly, which is a wonderful thing. And the pencil that I'm using has got a soft lead in it, pencil lead. We call them lead, not because they're made out of lead, but because the original sort of pens or styluses the Romans used, they used sticks of lead to write on slate and things, and on paper, because it would work on paper. Okay, so I need my finer pen here, because I'm going to turn these into bamboo. You can see where the knobbly bits are. Let me zoom in, and you can see this much better. See where these knobbly bits here are here? I'm going to, oh, I've got another one that doesn't want to work on me. It shows you how warm it is, that they're drying up even in their lid. There we go. Just give that a bit of a clean as well. That should be okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to draw an oval in with a small line below and a small line above. And I'm going to do that at each one of these all along. So bear with me for a moment. while I was at St Fagans, as you may know, I'm starting to learn Welsh with Duolingo, but I know I'm going to need a Welsh class soon to go to regularly to practice speaking Welsh with other people and, you know, being able to respond correctly. I'm getting knowledge of vocabulary and verbs, grammar, you know, things like that. But there's not that sense of being able to converse. But there are things I do know, and I know how to say some things, and it just comes naturally. So I actually used my Welsh a little bit with just simple things like saying good morning in Welsh and hello, you know, which is sort of like Shwmae, Shwd chi? Hello, how are you? Well, Shwmae is how are you as well. And got some surprised looks because people say good morning to you and go good morning, bore da. And they look at you going, hang on, I just heard an English accent, you know, in relative comparison. And then suddenly going to a quite Welsh-ish bore da. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to have to do it in person, I think. But I need to start looking soon for classes that start in the autumn and pick a day and time that will suit me. So my favourite bits, it's really hard to pick it out. I was a bit upset the roundhouses, the Iron Age roundhouses weren't open because I've got a particular fondness for the Iron Age period. I was invited to write a children's book about some amazing archaeology in Northern Ireland, Neolithic and Bronze Age. And so, you know, there was evidence there of Iron Age stuff, I think, as well, if I remember rightly. I could be wrong, at which point, if anybody knows about the project, they'll pull me up on it. But so I had to do a lot of learning about this, which isn't a problem because I'm fascinated with such things anyway. And so I seem to have a recollection of going to St Fagans on a school trip with my special needs class, and I think it was a science trip, because I just seem to remember science teachers being there, and I had my special needs class. It was one particular year group, and so we did our own thing because we could. And you know, the work that was set for everybody wasn't, you know, I was told, Angela, just do what you want, we know you'll do something good with them. Okay, yeah, so I did. And we talked about all kinds of things there. We talked about the environment, we talked about the past, we talked about how people did different things, how they made leather, how they cooked, how they kept their houses warm, you know, all kinds of interesting questions and things which they didn't write down. You know, I'm more interested in having that conversation and the back and forth of questions than anything else. And for my pupils, writing was very difficult for a lot of them. So we just, you know, filled in their quizzes as we went, which I helped them with, of course. And we ended up in the Iron Age houses, which are made out of, they've got thatched roofs, and they have, the lower walls are made of wood, covered with clay that's mixed with hay and manure. And inside they had a fire going and everybody had a seat to sit on. And although we had somebody from the museum there with us, the kids were just so interested in asking me questions about it that they just let me carry on because obviously I knew stuff. And they answered questions as well and helped out. But the questions they were coming out with and asking, and the realisation that these people aren't cave people, that they were intelligent, that they had technology and skills, and they made the most amazing metalwork, some, you know, examples of which still survive, like Latin, and others as well. And the kids were just blown away by it. And it was just a lovely, lovely, lovely time. And sometimes it's days like that where children are just given the opportunity to ask questions, to show interest in things without feeling that they're being made a fool of, because I'd never do that with my students. They might make a fool of me, but never of them. And it's always lovely to see that curiosity coming to the forefront and harbouring it, because I've got a natural curiosity of many things, especially if I don't know anything about something and I'm interested in it, obviously, or I've heard something that doesn't seem right. I will go and find out what the actual truth is, because these days it can be hard to tell truth from reality. In terms of media and coverage and social media and all kinds of things that seem that they might be real on the face of it but really aren't. So I had very fond memories of that particular trip. I think we had one or two pupils in the class who were absolute horrors to begin with. And so they were taken into a mainstream class for the duration of the day with the hope they'd behave there, because they just weren't going to. One of them said he was going to run away home, and so we just let him run off. He got as far as the visitor centre. I caught him up saying, "I thought you were going home." "I was, but I don't know the way." "Well, you better come with us then, hadn't you?" And they looked a bit sheepish and actually behaved and enjoyed the day. The other one, I think it was two of them, I think the other one remained with the head of science and his group, who didn't tolerate the nonsense that I'd experienced. So, and they had a lovely day then. We spent all the rest of, after lunch, we went and had lunch by the lily ponds, which have got fish in them, and sat on the grass and lawn and under trees. And I'm still being asked, "Well, what are these flowers? What's this? What's that? Why have they got this here? What are those fish called?" And I had a little fish expert in the group, so I said, "You come and tell us." So they could show off their knowledge then and explain to them about them. And that's what education should be, in my opinion. It's engendering or empowering that natural sense of curiosity that we as humans have, and that desire to know about things and not feeling foolish because you don't know. Because none of us were born knowing everything, though some people seem to think they were. I'm sure we've all come across people like that. And it's so much more pleasurable for me to see that joy and curiosity being shown and to grow and to be fostered. Okay, so if I zoom back out again, because as I zoom back in again, if I zoom back out again, you can see there what's happened so far. And that is a surprising result. I am chuffed with this because I did not expect that, not one bit. And I did not expect to see flowers and bamboo. So let's make these look a little bit more like flowers, and I'm going to put a centre in them, and I'm just going to put lines coming out like little stamen. Okay, so this won't take me very long. I'm just thinking now I should have done this last if I'm going to add colour to this, because otherwise the paint, I won't go around these with paint, I'll go over them, but then it's not a problem because I can go over the top again with black ink if it becomes too muted. And that little centre there is just perfect for gold. I think this is all the detail I want to put on this, because I think that everything else will be fine. The only other thing I might do is run a very fine black line down one side once I've added colour or whatever I'm going to do, to denote sort of shade on one side. But then part of me thinks if I do that, well, this This is sort of meant to be almost this way anyway, but we'll see. We'll make it part of the pattern if I do that. Just checking all the way down. There's that one there. Yeah, that's one, isn't it? Yep. Over here. Got a strange shaped one there, but I can live with the strangeness of that one. And here will be the last ones. So just that little bit just brings a bit more structure to it and a bit of a better idea. With these, I may add more detail, but I do want to fill them in with colour first. So what would I do on this part? Do you know what? I don't know. But I don't want anything as dense as this. I want something that's lighter and more open. So what I might do is over here is start to draw perhaps some other flowers. And perhaps I'll draw some daisy-like flowers with long, thin petals. And perhaps have them with stems going back into this flexy fluff, because that would be quite nice, like so. And then I can perhaps have some leaves or shapes coming off here. We'll stick with the flux. And perhaps here, instead of the whole flower, we can have a bud. And again, some smaller flexy leaves. So that'll work quite nicely. And what is lovely about this is I can take one of these off here and draw another daisy here. And I will keep all of this quite light and open, though I do hope I can separate the background up into little sections, because that makes it a lot easier to add colour to as far as I am concerned. Because me and colour and large spaces, we're not best of friends unless I'm working digitally, which would actually be perfect for this. And then I'm going to have one that bows its head here. Like so, and again, some of these little leaves. Then I can have another stem, perhaps growing from down here. So let's have a small one here. And we can have another one coming from here. And if my flowers go outside of the pencil line I've drawn, that's not a problem, because I'll just draw it underneath them. And I quite like the juxtaposition of quite a geometric pattern with something that is very organic and free flowing. I'm just readjusting my backside. I'm going to have a quick drink of water. I'm trying to drink a lot more and I'm not being very successful at it. And tea tastes funny at the moment. Everything tastes funny at the moment. Okay, let's have a nice big one here. Might have a small petal there, but that's okay. We can have different sized petals on them. So they're daisy-ish, just very simple flowers. But once I've added colour, I may come back and add some more detail to these petals. And just a little bit there. I may need another bud. Can I fit a bud in somewhere else? I think I can. I think I might be able to have a bud up here. That'll work, won't it? And then down here, I think I may just be able to get a tiny one in, just to fill this gap up. Because who says my daisies can't grow in any direction they like? Because of course they can. And again, I think I want a bud, but what I might do is carry the stem on behind this one and just put that bud in there. Again with a leaf or two. And I could almost have another bud here. Because again, that'll fill that little gap in. There's a gap up here which is bugging me, but I think it's going to have to remain as it is. Okay, let me just draw in the border around the outside. As you can see, I'm going behind objects as I come to them, and I'm giving my line a little wiggle every now and again, so that if I wiggle accidentally, it will look like it's meant to be wiggled. Or somebody's going to say, you haven't got a very steady hand, have you? It's deliberate. How dare you? That wasn't deliberate where I went into the bird. So we've got that there. I actually quite like this. I didn't think I was going to like this kind of arrangement. But I've got something here that's William Morris-ish, and something here that is also sort of William Morris-ish, because he used a lot of geometric patterns. I am going to put my initials here somewhere, and I think I'm going to pop them hanging off this leaf down here. Tiny initials in a little circle. There we go. And today is the 25th of June, so I will put it there and just sign as well. So most of the inking is done. I will add colour, maybe not now, because I'm going to give you the option of whether you want me to show you how I'm going to colour it, or whether you just want to see it finished. Shading I'm not going to do now, because if I add colour, the colour itself will become the shading that I want to see. But I'm really quite happy with this. I hope you agree. So thank you for joining me. Whatever time of day it is, enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are. Look after yourselves, be kind, be gentle to yourself as well, and take time to be creative. Until I see you again, take care. Ta-ra for now. Bye. Bye all.